Titan submarine owner showed the inside before the tragedy. This video. Can the bodies be recovered from Titan submarine? Titanic history.
This is the Titan submersible vessel. The underwater sub is used to take travel.
Really confirmed what happened with missing submarine. Its planning or incident on June 18, 2023. Titan, a submersible operated by OceanGate, went missing the international waters in the North Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Newfoundland, Canada. The submersible was on a tourist expedition to view the wreckage of the RMS Titanic with 5 individuals on board, including the founder and CEO of OceanGate, Stockton Rush. Due to the estimated 3 days of oxygen supply, there was a huge rescue effort by the U.S. Coast Guard and Canada's Coast Guard, which was unsuccessful until early on June 22 when evidence of the wreckage of the vessel started to emerge, leading to the tragic conclusion that the vessel imploded in the ocean depths. And there were no survivors. As an engineer, I'm furious about what happened and the different shortcuts that were taken. We'll go in through all of that today, so let's try to figure out what happened and what we can learn from this. I'm Ricky and this is Stupid Da Vinci, OceanGate history. Let's start what we know about the company operating the Titan and submersible. OceanGate Incorporated is a privately held U.S. company operating out of Everett, Washington that provides crewed submersibles for tourism industry and research and exploration. The company was founded in 2009 by Stockton Rush and Guillermo Solon. Stockton Rush wanted to be an astronaut, so he got his commercial pilot license, but because of bad eyesight he could never be a military pilot, so instead he moved from San Francisco to Seattle to work at McDonnell Douglas as a flight test engineer for the F-15 Eagle. After attending the launch of Spaceship One in the Mojave Desert in 2004, he decided he didn't want to go up to space as a tourist. He wanted to be like Captain
and his
Kirk
teenage
on
son
Enterprise. He wanted
are
to
among
explore
those
and
missing.
pivoted his
Time is of the essence in this search, with the US Coast Guard estimating that the crew had between 70 and 96 hours of oxygen left as of Monday night. That would leave in
pursuit to undersea exploration. He was married to Wendy Rush, a descendant of Isidore and Ida Strauss, 2 people who actually passed away on the sinking of the Titanic, which ties into the story here today. The tragic events happened during a deep-sea tourism expedition to explore the wreckage of the Titanic, which sunk in northern Atlantic in 1912. Before we get to the specifics of this particular tragedy, let's put just how difficult deep-sea challenges of deep-sea exploration is into context. It's easy to be in awe of aviation and space exploration because breaking free of gravity and flying through the air seem like such a feat, but in many ways deep-sea craft are the much greater engineering challenge. It all comes down to pressure. We don't think about air pressure because at sea level it's just 14.7 pounds per square inch. That pressure is the result of the column of air that reaches above us all the way into outer space. All those very molecules above us pushing down result in that pressure, but water is a much more dense fluid than air, so for every 10 meters or 32.8 feet you dive, the pressure increases by 1 atmosphere or 14.7 psi. The Titanic is sitting on the ocean floor at about 12,500 feet below sea level. The 2 broken parts of the ship, the bow and the stern, are more than 2,600 feet apart and surrounded by debris. After over 100 years of being in the bottom of the ocean, the wreckage is 400 miles off the coast of Newfoundland in Canada. You can stay here. Let's put this depth into perspective. Imagine laying on your back with a 1 foot by 1 foot board. Okay, and how much weight you would feel on that board at 100 meters, the size of a soccer or football field. We have the pressure of 10 atmospheres or 145 psi, which means on that 1 by 1 foot board we would feel the weight of 2,880 pounds. That is 4.7 Tesla, model-wise at 381 meters 1,250 feet. We have the height of the Empire State Building in New York City. At this depth we would feel 37.4 atmospheres of pressure, and that 1 by 1 footboard would feel the weight of 80,000 pounds at 490 meters. We have the max dive depth of the C-class of U.S. Navy submarine. Here we'd feel 48.5 atmospheres of pressure. That 1 by 1 footboard would feel the weight of 94,800 pounds at 828 meters. We have the height of the Burj Khalifa. Here we'd feel 82 atmospheres. That weight on the board would be 173,520 pounds. Now this is around the same depth As the deepest diving submarine in operation today, the Oscar-class submarine in the Russian Navy at 3,800 meters sets the wreckage of the Titanic. Here the pressures are 376 atmospheres that 1 by 1 footboard on our chest would have the weight of 797,000 pounds. The Ocean Gate Titan was rated for a mass dive depth of about 4,000 meters. Now that might sound insane, but actually it's not even. The record for the deepest human beings have been. That honor goes to James Cameron and the Deep Sea Challenger, built in Australia in 2012. The Deep Sea Challenger reached the deepest part of the Mariana Trench in the Pacific Ocean, the deepest point on Earth, at a mind-boggling 11,000 meters. Or 36,000 feet. Here we'd feel 1090 atmospheres of pressure, and that 1 by 1 foot board would have the weight of 2.3 million pounds on it. Compare that to the difference in pressure of an airplane at cruising altitude of 36,000 feet, where outside the pressure might be 3 psi and on the inside between 10 and 12. And that hopefully puts in perspective why more people have been to space than have been into the deepest parts of our oceans. Now let's talk about the red flags that plagued Ocean Gate. The red flags, from the get-go. By the way, Ocean Gate just sounds like a walking scandal ready to happen. First, the design limitations of the Titan required that the hatch be bolted down by 17 to 18 bolts from the outside. This means there's no way for the passengers inside to open the hatch. They'd have to rely on ground crews to open it. Now this is understandable because of these deep-sea vessels have to be incredibly tight. They have to be very strong. The water seals have to hold, and that's all complicated. But I think this shows you why it's really important to have backup systems and have some sort of an explosive detonation cord you can pull to blow the hatch in the event that the craft surfaced and no one found it. And that was actually one of the fears early on, is that the vessel could actually surface and be at the surface somewhere along the Atlantic unfound and still die from suffocating because they couldn't open the hatch and the air could run out. The Titan also didn't have GPS or other navigational instruments on board, and it didn't have a locator beak in either. Like a black box on an aircraft, most subs use GPS for near-surface navigation, which doesn't work in deeper waters. In deeper waters they use dead reckoning course information obtained by the ship's Euro compass, measured speed and estimates of local ocean currents. They also allowed inertial navigation systems, which was an estimated position source utilizing acceleration, deceleration, pitch, and roll from the computers that transmit this data. The Titan, in contrast, appeared to rely only on data provided by the surface support vessel. In 2019, Ocean Gate published a blog post explaining why the Titan was not certified by any ship authority, which was a huge red flag. Ocean Gate stated the vast majority of marine and aviation accidents are actually the result of operator error, not mechanical failure here, and argue that classification focused solely on the physical state of the vessel and not the corporate actions, which are characterized as a constant committed effort and a focused corporate culture of maintaining high-level operational safety. That sounds like absolute to me. I'm sorry. Journalist David Progue, who wrote on the Titan to view the Titanic in 2022, noted during his expedition the surface support vessel lost track of the Titan for about 4 to 5 hours, and mentioned that adding a locator beacon was actually discussed during this event. They could still send short texts to the sub, but they had no idea where it was. It was quiet and very tense, he says, and they shut off the ship's internet to keep us from tweeting. Oh my God, that is terrifying, and they've already known that this could happen. The craft was also controlled by a video game controller, which sounds like some cool Silicon Valley way of thinking, beanbag chairs and break rooms, but it's downright stupid. Military spec products go through incredible rigorous testing, making them safe in all operating environments. For example, as expensive as Apple's Vision Pro headset is at $3,500, it is done right cheap compared to the history of the Titan, $400,000 that it costs to get a helmet for the F-35 fighter jet. And the reason why, well, lower volumes of course, but also because they have to go through unbelievable vibration testings to make sure the wells will all hold up, make sure that the higher levels of radiation at 40 to 50,000 feet won't do any damage long term, and to make your absolute reliability. Now let's talk about how we got to the Titan. Ocean Gate started by purchasing Antipodes, which is a submersible, back in 2012, which was their first test bed for testing and learning about this entire endeavor. Next they built Cyclops 1, which is in collaboration with University of Washington's Applied Physics Laboratory, and this was a deeper sea vessel capable of reaching a max depth of 500 meters, still nowhere near deep enough for the Titanic, but this was their next step and their next iteration in the early design. The hull was made of carbon fiber, and that's the whole submersible would dive vertically with pivoting seats to ensure the passengers remained upright. Now it was said that Boeing worked with Ocean Gate and the University of Washington on their initial design analysis, but we'll get back to that in a second because there's a little bit more to that story. Finally they would arrive at the Titan, their final product that would actually be rated for 4,000 meters. One of the key takeaways about the Titan is that this is a carbon fiber and titanium hulled submersible. Now this is really exotic in the world of materials. We've been using high strength steel aluminum for a long time, and we have data engineering data on how they fail and what to look for in test methodologies, but carbon fiber is still quite exotic. In fact, any car you've ever driven probably doesn't have much carbon fiber in it. The only exceptions are really high-end supercars, or even in the case of aviation more recently with the Boeing Dreamliner, but before that we've always used aluminum and titanium and other materials like that. So just generally, there's less known about it, and it's also really difficult to make sure that you get it right. Ocean Gate signed a contract with Spencer Composites in January 2017 for the carbon composite cylinder. More drama. This was the same company that built the composite pressure hull for the single-person deep flight Challenger for Steve Fawcett. After Fawcett passed away, Deep Flight Challenger was acquired by Richard Branson's Virgin Oceanic, which had announced plans to conduct a series of 5 dives to the deepest points of the ocean, but Deep Flight refused to endorse the plan as the craft had been designed to dive only once. This is important, we'll get back to this in a second. In a statement they said the problem is the strength of the Deep Flight Challenger does decrease after each dive. It's strongest on the first dive, said Adam Wright, the firm's president. It was designed to set the record dive to the deep and then be retired as an exhibit in the Smithsonian.